And then you have met before Josh, who is our mold inspector, and then Michael Rubino, who is our expert remediation. Have you looked in a wall in Balfour Beatty housing on Key West that does not have mold in it?
Every wall I looked into has mold, visible mold. Every
Wait, but Josh, there are these houses that have been remediated and they've cleared them for people to move back into. Have the houses that have been remediated have mold in them?
just as much as probably before they began remediation. So they botched remediation, they didn't do it.
Okay. We found water running down walls. Josh and I saw water coming out of a socket. Guess what Balfour Beatty's response was to that mom with a toddler? No. If you just take the socket cover out, then it'll dry out.
Oh yeah, just air it.
Just air it out. Just air it out by taking the socket off. That is the only person that Josh and I said had to leave, right?
Yes.
Why do you have to leave if there's water coming out of a socket?
Fire hazard, instant fire hazard, of course. This not only happened to that one that we witnessed, it's happening to most of those outlets in the home, but also she had a young child.
She had a toddler. You have sockets for a reason. Michael, talk to me about moisture in walls. Are you supposed to have moisture in walls?
No.
How much moisture is acceptable in a wall?
You're going to have some moisture migration from outside to inside, but you shouldn't have the amount of moisture that Josh finding inside the walls.
Okay, Josh, how much moisture have you been finding in walls?
Yeah.
100% or greater.
What does that even mean?
That's fiber saturation. The wall cannot hold any more moisture content. If more moisture hit it, then you're going to see liquid water forming on the surface of the wall, which we have plenty of evidence of that too. Water running down the walls.
What about ceilings?
Same thing with the ceilings. Last time I was here, almost every single ceiling, every square inch of every single ceiling was 100% moisture content. That's why they're putting boards up to hold it from falling though.
Why are ceilings falling down?
The attic areas of, I forget the name of the neighborhood, but the attic areas when they put the new metal roofing on.
6 feet.
That one. There's no exhaust ventilator. You have air intake around your soffits, so outside air goes into your attic area, but it does not have a way to escape. So for one, that's going to allow that water vapor, the humidity, to drive down into your walls, but also it creates an environment where the ceiling's drywall is just going to be absorbing all of this humidity it's at a stalemate in your attic and in your walls. That's why they're sagging. That's why they're falling.
So, Michael, what's the proper response to wet walls or wet ceilings?
The proper response to wet walls and wet ceilings is to remove the wet material, especially drywall insulations, or it's going to hover like a sponge. That moisture, kind of bringing you back to like third grade science class, wet sponge on top of the counter, and the entire counter is wet. Well, guess what? The area around that counter is going to dry pretty quickly. The area underneath that wet sponge, you take it 2-3 days later, it's still wet underneath because it traps moisture. All these houses have trapped moisture, which is allowing for those walls to stay wet far longer than they would. And that's if there was obviously not systemic issues with the homes to begin with. So we have pretty severe trap moisture issues going on inside every single home.
How many of you have this beautiful little shiplap stuff on your ceiling? Okay. Tell me about that. Why did they tell you they put up the shiplap?
Water to prevent collapsing ceilings.
Okay. Did that make sense to you at the time?
I agree.
Yeah, you don't know any better, right? Sure. Okay. I know you're probably used to, there's a little bit mold under a sink, there's a little bit mold in the bathroom, but when your house is as humid as your houses are, it's going to proliferate that much faster. So you're going to end up with results like that. It's not just a little bit, it's 212 spores. Michael, has Stachybotrys been used in biological warfare?
It has.
Can you tell us more about that?
There are a lot of these toxins that are created by the exact molds that are growing inside these homes that they make immune suppressant drugs out of to suppress your immune system when you need something like an organ transplant. They are used in biochemical warfare. You have aspergillus is a pretty common mold outside, but it's not so common to have it at this quantity inside, and it can cause aspergillosis, which is a deadly fungal infection.
Are these the highest Stachybotrys scores you've ever seen?
By far, it doesn't even come close.
So this is after 2 remediations. So Balfour Beatty remediated this house safe twice, cleared it as safe for habitation, safe for the family to move back in. And these are the highest scores we've ever seen. The next one, 222 spores in the HVAC supply plant. That's the air that is moving throughout the home. And usually the HVAC supply plant doesn't even have stacking bombs. What is required for proper remediation? Do you need a protocol?
So there's some nuances to remediation in general. First off, Florida has regulations for remediation, so you have to be licensed. Remediation is actually the process of identifying a sick building, right? Figuring out what's wrong with the building and making the necessary repairs to that building, right? As you can probably imagine, remediation does not look like putting up pieces of wood on the ceiling to stop the ceilings from caving in. It actually should look like figuring out why are the ceilings caving in the first place, removing all that material, removing any sort of biologicals that grew during that fact, which in this case, obviously, we've seen quite a bit of mold as evidence, and putting the house back together properly so that this problem doesn't continuously persist. None of you have had remediation, I can tell you that, because there are actually industry standards. I have a certification called the Council Certified Microbial Remediation Supervisor. It requires 10 years of documented experience in the field. Well, obviously, to have that certification, there are certain rules and regulations that you would follow as part of the process. Part of the regulation is that you identify the cause of what's happening. That was not done here. And if it was done, it certainly wasn't implemented because, again, putting pieces of lumber up to stop your ceilings from caving in, that's not part of remediation. And so another thing that's not part of remediation is just spray painting over mold. That's not remediation. Part of remediation is to remove any contaminated material. Especially you guys, we just had 2 hurricanes, right, come through. I'm sure you've heard, a lot of flooding happened in those hurricanes in parts of the Southeast. And with that being said, you have dangers of not just mold, but bacteria, harmful levels of bacteria that come in from some of these tidewaters. Proper remediation is removing those harmful contaminants, right? And so if you look at it from this perspective, as we can see, they're trying to fix things with bubble gum and duct tape. That's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to pretend to you that it's remediation, when in all actuality it's not. And for so many reasons, it's wrong. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't so wrong and so important for me to be here. I have not been paid to be here. This is my second time here, not been paid either visit to be here. I'm here with you guys because this means so much to me that we get our act together, especially for you guys, putting your lives on the line to be here for fighting for all of our freedom. This is the last thing that should be happening, but yet here we are. So something has to change, and what has to change is real remediation so that everyone has a safe and habitable house to live in. Because as far as I'm concerned, none of these houses should be habitable.
I just want to, I don't know if we're related to the Townhall meeting on Wednesday. Maybe Admiral John Hewitt himself said from the houses he went through, there were, I think he said 10 houses he went through in August and just laid eyes on visually. He said he himself does not feel that any of the houses on 6B are livable or should be habited. He followed it immediately by saying everyone needed to remember that they are locked into a 50-year contract and to not do anything.
But when we're all together, it's harder to dismiss because amongst you, we have ceilings falling in, we have the failure to disclose asbestos, the failure to disclose lead. We have actually intentional fraud about those things. We have work orders that never were placed. We have work orders that were closed prematurely. We have threats made to people who tried to disclose mold. We have the failure to remediate. We have promises to remediate. We have promises broken. It's a pretty compelling complaint to me.
500 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment now that costs us a little bit, basically our whole BAH in a way. Anyway, so on our own dime, moved down on our own dime, and had my son exposed to it since his first day. Just the future also is, the unknown.
So we've been living in that motel since August.
still there. We're supposed to move into like one of the new homes in Elmwood, and it won't pass the inspection. So we just get, it's above our pay grade. You guys are gonna stay in a hotel until another house is ready. Turns out they have a 2-year wait list, meaning they're, and then she said that they're condemning homes now, so we won't have a home. Sorry, it makes me cry because I don't know what to do. So it's like me, my husband, her, and our dog in just a hotel, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a horrible mom because I can't cook her a meal.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I send her to school, everybody judges for lunches because it's just random stuff, but it doesn't have to be microwaved or it doesn't have to be cooked. And then we go to our house yesterday for them to turn the AC off in our home. And all of our stuff is still there. And we're kind of stuck because they're still taking our BAH. And so we don't even have like the money to go anywhere else. Well, I go to school full time and I work full time. My husband does too. So with being in the hotel, I don't do my homework anymore because it's too hard to try and find the space.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to go with my classes now. And we took her to the doctor because she's had like so many respiratory infections, ear infections, to where she has to get surgery in January.
It's hard to bring a case against a big company alone, but when you are together, it is so powerful. It is so incredibly powerful.